Hi, Aries, Sun, and Rising. Welcome to your September 2025 Astro Update. It's Rena here. I think Aries was one of the few signs that I did not originally do and have one correction that I needed to make. Those other videos, I did like 7 of them and I took them down and then I supposedly corrected them and I did the same thing twice. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do a sign that I know I haven't done before. So September is a big month, and even in August, you may feel the reverberations, I guess you would call it, of the eclipses that are officially happening in September. You can feel that changes in the air, and it's like sometimes it can feel like a breakthrough, and sometimes it can feel like, oh my gosh, what is solid in my life right now? So let's talk about where these areas will be for your sign, Sun and Ascendant. As the month begins, we're in Virgo season, so Aries people will tend to feel that sense of their life being very down to brass tacks. Like the Sun, the sixth house, Virgo, is all about, your organization of your daily routine or schedule, your work life, your health, those kind of practical matters. Virgo's an earth sign, so those earthy kind of things. And so the sun is there. And then Saturn retrogrades from your first house. So you've had Saturn and Neptune both enter your sign, but they're both going back into Pisces and into that 12th house. And this is like you're going from discipline on kind of a visible level to discipline on an invisible level. The 12th house is a house of the spiritual dimension, so it can be anything related to spiritual work, the spiritual path a person has, but also about the things that kind of trip you up. So your bad habits, your addictions. Addictions is a big one. But, people think of substance abuse with addictions, but it can be addiction to sex, addiction to money, addiction to relationships, a love addict, that kind of thing. I think, I think for Aries, it could be addiction to drama and not being comfortable with like a calm environment. So there's something that you need to kind of work on with that. Maybe and I see like a connection between the 12th house and the first house, because the first house is kind of like that surface version of yourself, and the 12th house is like underneath the surface, diving deep. And so you might need to kind of go back and look at that part of yourself that maybe you haven't fully gotten a hold of. And sometimes if somebody does have some kind of compulsive behavior, once they get a handle on that, that can solve all kinds of other things, because it was that behavior. Like even just talking about substance abuse, sometimes that can create so many dysfunctional patterns that the person doesn't normally exhibit. And once they stop that, it's so much easier to do other things. On the 2nd, Mercury goes into that 6th house, and it's all about the practical things that you are thinking about. Mercury can be thinking and speaking about practical things. It could be reading about diet. You could be negotiating with an employer. And the theme of the practical and the impractical is big for you with these eclipses in Virgo and Pisces. On the 6th, Uranus retrogrades to 1 degree of Gemini, and that is your third house. Uranus in the third, Uranus can be technology. And so the third house being communication, this could be something that is really on your radar that you want to communicate online. Maybe you want to start a business, but even if you start a business, it may have something to do with communicating your take on things, your ideas. And so maybe it's a blog, maybe you're starting a YouTube channel, or you already have started it, but you're kind of nurturing it along. Uranus retrograde can be, maybe feeling a little bit less, maybe being a little bit less consistent. When Uranus is direct, some of those positive traits like being innovative, being unique, can affect this area of life. When Uranus is retrograde, the challenging side of things, like the tendency maybe to be a rebel without a cause, or to be weird, and there's no real higher purpose for it, so it's kind of like almost a contrarian, that kind of thing, refusing, or just even being like a rebel without there being a higher purpose for it. You could find that if you have videos that it's kind of sporadic that you're doing it, or that maybe, but this could be, I feel like this could, even when Uranus is retrograde, that you could go viral. On the 7th is the lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Pisces, and that's in your 12th house. So that will be helpful, even though it won't form a conjunction with Saturn. When you have a lunar eclipse in the 12th house, it can help to eclipse out any kind of, maybe some bad habit that has plagued you, that you may find it hard to kind of quit on your own. This is also great for resetting. You have these two longer range planets that will eventually go back into your sign. I believe it's going to be in the early months of 2026, because they're going to end the year in Pisces, even though they're both going to be direct. I'm talking about Saturn and Neptune, but they're going to go back into your sign in the earlier part of 2026. And so this is a time to really consciously, but of course this is an eclipse, so it's not really up to you. This is like you accepting the results of this eclipse, that you go with the flow about things that are ending and chapters closing, because the 12th house is the last house. So it is tying up those loose threads, and kind of like prepping you for 2026, so that you can move forward in a cleaner sort of way. On the 18th, Mercury goes into Libra, into that 7th house of committed partnership, but also legal affairs. You might be negotiating something. I mentioned when it was in the 6th house with your workplace. Well, if you can't solve it there, you might go above to arbitration with your company, or even legal matters, consulting a lawyer, or this can also be like if you are planning a wedding. That might be 7th house is committed partnership, but Mercury can be the legal documents, or the speaking to the caterer, or whatever, those kinds of things. Oh, and also the 7th house is public relations, so you may have a good opportunity to get the word out about you. On the 21st, we have a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo in that 6th house. So that can open up a lot of new doors work-wise for you. It can be a great time for your physical, um, for like kind of moving forward some way in health matters, whether it is, like working with a professional, or if you're just doing your own workouts or your own way of eating that you have been researching and changing. But it's like a very pronounced new moon. So this can usher in also. Then a big thing that this could usher in is a new schedule for yourself. Maybe you are used to working the night shift, and now you're going to be off uh, all day. I mean, if Uranus in the third house, you might even be working remotely at a call center, like doing customer service or something. And this is giving you like a lot of opportunities to choose from. So definitely if you're in between jobs, this should give you hope. On the very next day, Mars goes into Scorpio, so in that kind of secretive eighth house. That's your ruler. And so it can be very sexual, although I don't think it's very casual, like casual sex. But it could be that you are feeling the desire to transform yourself. So the sixth house can be transforming your health. So that would be on the physical level. And the eighth house can be internally, but like the shamanism is eighth house, and that is all about transformation at a deep level. Yeah, I mean, that lunar eclipse, that could be about letting go of bad habits, but also burning off karma from past lives and getting your spiritual house in order. The eighth house is kind of that bridge in between, because it is a spiritual house too, but it's like dealing with you. The 12th house is like the collective soul. So you and others, relating spiritually, but the eighth house is your spiritual practices that you do to raise your vibration, to, like shadow work is a big thing for the eighth house, which is, the eighth house can be psychological, and shadow work can be psychotherapy even. But just this idea of going beneath the surface and kind of like investigating what motivates you. But Mars is like leaving no stone unturned, like someone who, there's a very suspicious kind of energy that comes out of the eighth house sometimes. And it could be like investigating something that is, you feel like that something is going on, but you can't put your finger on it. Eighth house is other people's money. There could be some kind of fight with others, maybe family members, a soon-to-be ex or a recent ex partner over money, child support, things like that. And maybe that's what Mercury in the seventh house is all about, is consulting, having some kind of legal matter that you have to attend to. On the same day, the sun goes into Libra, into that seventh house, and that is where you will be focused as September comes to a close and into October. So this area of committed partnership and any kind of legal matters or public relations, this could be what is your primary focus at this time. Okay, that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.